In the second lesson of this section, Determine What You Are Estimating, I will give you an overview of reasonable practices for a standard estimation procedure at different common estimation request points and a preview of the techniques we will cover later on in this class. We will start with the simplest estimates and work our way to the bigger ones. The first one is estimating an individual small task. To illustrate the estimation request, I'll map it out here on the cone of uncertainty about where this request typically falls, and then I'll answer the questions who, when, size, how, and type. Back to the work test. When we typically estimate a work task, well, it's best when we're estimating near the end of the cone. We don't want to try to guess the work task early in the cone because we haven't done the work yet to define them. We would just be speculating. Let's do the work, figure out what we're really building, and then we'll know the work tasks. We tend to do this only when we're planning out an increment of work, a small chunk of work. For Agile, a sprint. For sequential, a milestone. The person who should be doing the estimate is the person doing the task, not someone else on their behalf, but the person doing the work. How will they determine size? This is critical. Best practice is to use ideal hours. Now, they may wish to talk in terms of direct effort hours, but I would discourage that because this is a political hot potato. I encourage the estimator to start with size, and ideal hours is a size measurement. We're going to use simple expert judgment because these tasks should be small enough that expert judgment will work. Because we're estimating the entire task in one chunk, this is a top down technique. But if you were to try to combine this task with others to come up with a bigger chunk, then it would be contributing to a bottom up estimate. As we get a bit bigger and more complex, we find things like stories or small chunks of work. I'm going to use the story here as the example because it's extremely common right now. When does estimating story happen? Story estimation primarily happens in backlog refinement sessions. These are sessions during the sprint where we're looking at future work, not the current work. We will have earlier given the story a rough sizing so we can even determine if it's worth spending time as a team doing this more detailed sizing. We hopefully have been spending some effort to understand this smaller chunk of work, so we're probably somewhere in the middle of the cone. If you're working as a team, it is important that the team sizes this. We'll see why later. On Agile, we're using a pointing system to determine size. You could use ideal engineering hours, but a pointing system seems to be the most common right now, and it works fine for what it does. The points are assigned using a structured group technique, often one called planning poker. If you're doing sequential, we can use a different pointing system or ideal hours. Since we're looking at the whole thing, this is a top down estimate by itself. Combined with others, bottom up. Next is we're going to give rough sizing to chunks of work, epics, features, milestones, etc. I'll use the example of items coming into the backlog. For sequential, it's likely a feature being suggested or a value path defined. Here we have the combination of item being fairly new, but within an existing context. That'll put us early, but not at the beginning of the cone. I think this again needs the team to estimate. The way we're going to size this typically with t-shirt sizing. We're not going to try to do anything more specific than that because these are still nebulous, not fully understood things. We need rough sizing like t-shirt size to make general investment decisions. We're going to use a structured group, probably using a fuzzy logic type procedure, where we're going to give it a t-shirt size and convert that to effort on a lookup table. Since we're combining items to say how big the backlog is or how big the milestone's in, this is a bottom-up approach. Another estimate in the same area is estimating a release. Now, release is typically after the backlog is somewhat stable, so we've moved a little bit down the cone here. In our agile world, we do it when the velocity is relatively established. In a more sequential world, maybe after a mini mile or student have been met. The estimator now is typically shifted from the development team to the product owner or a project manager. They're looking at this and saying, okay, given where I want to take this work, when do I think I can release it? The development team must give the product owner or project manager some degree of consistency so they can make a prediction off that. With consistency, it's going to be simple arithmetic with some variability that we're going to throw on top of that. Because we're looking at a lot of items still, this is going to be a bottom-up technique. And finally, there's estimating the entire project. We first get asked this very early in the project when people have just an inkling of an idea. Who's doing this? This is probably not the team as it hasn't even been formed yet. We have likely got business and tech leadership who are making the first stab at this. And to do this, we're going to have some sort of historical whole project estimate. We must look at the entire project as a single thing because we truly don't know any of the details yet. We just got a big swipe of ideas. To this, we'll need some sort of historical data, actual or bootstrap, to size the project. We'll put that historical data into an analogy or some sort of structured group, even bringing out a tool with parametric estimate if wanted. Obviously, we're looking at the project as one single thing and not a speculative bits being combined. This is going to be a top down approach. I think there are three main takeaways from this lesson. First is that estimation happens continuously throughout the development lifecycle. We don't just estimate once and walk away. We use estimation early in the set expectations and then repeatedly to help us control the project. Then as we do these different estimates, we use different approaches given that different information is available. Finally, we'll start with some top down and then we'll quickly switch to bottom up because early estimates are best top down. It is the later estimates that have the detailed knowledge that we can use bottom up. And we use all these estimates to help us guide and control the project.